How is it already time for me to get sappy on you again? Salutations! Welcome to Learning the Language of Literacy. My name is Sophia Lee, and welcome to week 5 of my journey to the dark side. I honestly don't know how the time went by so quickly. I mean, I was only able to go to 6 of the 10 classes this session, but still, the time has just flown by, and I have fallen completely and utterly in love with poetry. Today, Georgia wanted to take poetry class outside, but for the first hour, we worked on another prompt. This prompt was given by Kate, who was the same girl who gave us the stone prompt, which is week 3. And what she brought in today was a little bit more describable. It was an old-fashioned pocket watch. I've come to learn that I absolutely love object prompts, because even though in the beginning of the very first week I was like, how on earth am I supposed to describe this green glob of whatever it was, gradually as we've progressed, we found that we can go so much deeper than that, and there's so many different perspectives and just these tangents upon tangents upon tangents that the entire class loves. Gavin, my boyfriend, wrote about how he did not want to write about the pocket watch, which he does actually in a lot of different prompts. There's this girl named Bree who focused in on these moments of time that this watch could capture, and then there was Emma who talked about the times of different annoying occurrences, because it was like 4:27 p.m. Saturday, my trash cans fell over, and it was just all these different completely random events that she came up with on the spot. It just seemed so artful, and she was thinking about maybe making it more purposeful with the time and the meaning and the events, but everyone in the class was like, no, it is absolutely perfect the way it is. And then we come to what I did with the prompt. Now I owe writing class $2. So in poetry, Georgia has this thing called the sorry jar, and each time you say the word sorry, you have to put 25 cents in, because sorry completely deters the audience's desire to listen to your poem, and if you preface it with it being not good, then they're going to expect that, and it gives them a totally wrong impression, because you are not your best critic, and unless you hear from other people. Now in my case, I said sorry 3 times in this ongoing stream of me saying this poem wasn't good enough. At that point, she charged me $1, even though 3 times 25 equals 75. She was like, I'm gonna charge you an extra quarter for this. And then after I read my poem, she was like, Sophia, you should not at all have been apologizing for that, so you owe another $1. The reason I was saying sorry for this poem is because what Gavin can tell you is that you can't actually read poems that are on my paper because there's so many arrows and lines and things going on. I was just so confused with what I had written in the first place, and I just really didn't want to share it because I didn't know how it would flow. Now I'm going to actually read the poem I wrote. And this is untitled for now. Bound together by chains and nails, the last-ditch efforts of superglue. Look at them as basic hardware, cogs and wheel spokes fuel binding contracts and forced commitment. The most minute of details soldered together from affections. The naked threads too tangled up from being used to each other. Whether it's the 2 children made to socialize or the reluctant peers begrudgingly collaborating, exchange hatred or lovelorn glances make no difference. Time impresses upon skin of who you wouldn't be otherwise. Maybe that's why we can't help but fall in love. This is a very first draft, even though by the looks of it, you wouldn't think so. What she was saying was that everyone in the entire room had just worked on them. They had no time to separate themselves from their work. They don't apologize. They know it can be improved upon, but they also accept the fact that this is a first draft and the first time anyone's ever heard it, and it's supposed to be rough. Something I'd like to say about poetry class in general is that we have some awesome ending lines. The message and the feel it leaves you with, because even I've noticed this in my own poetry, and most definitely with all of the poets around me, is that their poem might be just wonderful and amazing on its own, but then it becomes this spectacular thing that you think no one has ever been able to come up with before when you read the last line. The right last line, the right wording of it all can make it just so startling and so just mind-blowing. For example, when I wrote, because home is the thing you left to come back to, that worth is not defined by a price tag, but by the ongoing miles it gains through conversation. The fact that I was able to come up with it, I was just like, oh, points for me. Then we went outside, and the interesting thing about the outside prompt was that it was a partner activity, which we've actually never done. We were told to think of a certain social issue or current event and to write about it with our separate perspectives. The first pair was Annie and Emma, and Brie and I, before we started, we were like, Annie and Emma are going to do something LGBT or maybe about Common Core, and sure enough, they did queer rights, which was totally them. And the 2 poems I wrote were actually very different perspectives while still being the same one, because Annie's very outspoken and she's a huge activist and one to speak up for the queer community, and Emma didn't have the same kind of perspective. What Georgia brought up for both of them was that they needed to weave in more imagery throughout the whole narrative. It was just so interesting to see them collaborate because they're friends, because the issue is so strong to both of them. It was really interesting. Then we had the trio of Chris, Gavin, and Kate. We're focused on this event that Kate brought up about this well that this boy fell down. Three of them are just so different writers. Their issue itself was a bit odd. What Gavin did actually was write one of the shortest poems poetry class has ever seen. It basically was asking who builds a well that someone could fall down, and it was just this, I would maybe want to say nursery rhyme feel to it, just by the way it was so questioning while being a little bit condescending while still being completely amazing. Kate, on the other hand, she has this thing where she ties it back to fairy tales and what happens in the more adult versions of them, not like Hans Christian Andersen, but just reality meets these fairy tales. And what Georgia said was that she would like to see her branch out a little bit more from that because she's gotten used to it and it's her comfort zone, but she still has such good talent at weaving together these just mystical alternate universe. And then there were the poems that Brie and I wrote, and I absolutely would never have given up this experience for the world of writing with her. We didn't really know what we were doing because we knew that we couldn't do queer LGBT rights because Annie and Emma were evidently going to do them, and of course we didn't have enough knowledge or background experience with them. First we started talking about poetry class and just what it meant for us because of course, you know, we gotta stall procrastinate. What we were talking about was the way it's so kind of daunting and intimidating to be surrounded by all these people that are just so talented and such good writers. She gave me one of the highest compliments I think I will ever receive from someone in poetry class, or maybe just in general. What she said was that I fit in the class, and I was just stunned by her response. I had felt for so long coming into poetry that everyone else had been together for just a long time. They knew each other's writing styles. I think I was even to the slightest bit up to par with them because I just thought they were just so talented, and she said I fit in, which was just an amazing compliment to give me, so thank you, Brie. How we actually came up with that prompt was that there was this pair of friends and they had to ask for directions, and she replied, and then she was like, "Ooh, people." And we gradually went with it, and we were like, anxiety, depression. She wrote what I think was the best poem I've ever heard in poetry class, which is saying a lot considering I think basically every poem everyone reads is the best poem ever. It was this really kind of long, rambly poem that should be read slowly and carefully, and there was just this really artful enjambment. It was basically her personal experience of dealing with anxiety, what it means to her and then the people around her. It was just an astounding, amazing work of art. The last line was what especially hit home, and it was, "Home is where the heartache is," and everyone was just like, oh my god, that is the best line ever. Then there was my poem, which I'm actually proud of because I don't have first-hand experience with being depressed, but I have first-hand experience of having friends and people I care about that are depressed, so I kind of took it from another angle, and I really liked how it turned out. Even though I do think, and people actually said this to me, was that the ending was a bit abrupt, but I'm just going to read it for you because I really like it. "It is a world everyone has heard of but seldom want to discuss, too heavy to be the centerpiece for another gathering of plastic well-wishes. A constant stream of white noise assaulting condemned ears that we have all seemed to lock out of our consideration. Constant attention is required for those who have invalid claims brought to light when the ones we thought we were protecting end up being the guardians. It is so easy to stay standing on the front lines for a cause we don't actually have to believe in, until it was brought to our attention that this is our world." That was the end of this last poetry class, but before I end this video, I really just want to talk about and give many shout outs to everyone in my class because they completely have just changed my life in terms of just poetry and their perspective, and I've learned and been exposed to so much. First off, there's Josie, who has a very dark tone to her work, and it's always just red, and her extremely just deep and slow voice that really lets everything sink in, and I just am in love with everything she writes because it's brutally honest and beautiful. Every single time she reads a poem of hers, we all have to just sit in silence for a few seconds afterwards because of everything that she has just hurled at us, and it seems that every single one of her words has power. Then there's Gavin, who is, you know, my boyfriend, and I've just enjoyed being in a class with him so much because he always has this wit to him and this kind of not really snarky isn't the word, but this kind of sarcastic, rebellious attitude to the prompts, because he most of the time doesn't want to do them, so he writes things to say that he doesn't want to do them while still following the prompt throughout the entire poem. I know him from so many different perspectives, from how he acts with his family to how he acts with his friends to class and of course with me, and it's just so interesting to see him work every week. And then there's Sophie, who's a fiction convert. All I can say is that she just should keep on being in poetry because she is just an amazing writer and I love her work so much. Then there's Annie, who is our feminist, LGBT rights activist, as well as just an awesome person all around. It's actually a slam poet as well as obviously a written word poet, and every single thing she writes is this amazing work of art, and she has this voice that absolutely mesmerizes everyone in the room when she reads aloud. Then there's Emma, whose personality is the best in the entire class. Someone said about her the other day was that everything that she says is basically a witty one-liner, and that's true because she has this way of just being so straightforward and so hilarious while just still being really nice, and I would kind of want to compare her to Hazel Grace and how Augustus sees her. And then there's Bree, who I've only got to be in like 2 classes with, which I really am disappointed with, but I enjoy my time with her partnering up for the poem so much because she has this ability to tie in emotions with colors and this way to take you on this long journey of something that you don't quite know what it is, but you love what you're hearing from her, and she kind of doubts herself at times like me, and I need her to keep talking. Then there's Sarah, who's actually only in 7th grade. She's the youngest in the class, and we are just amazed by her because she should not be in 7th grade with her poetry. Then there's Kate, who is our magical realism alternate universe poet, and she has this talent with rhythm and just the way that words work and the sound effects and just this constant beating heart of her poetry. Chris is another fiction convert. I love his work because it has some hints of fiction, but it's completely poetry. He has such good ends of lines. He has the ability to be straightforward and just tell it to you straight, but he can also write really lyrical, romantic poems. And then, of course, there is Georgia, who has been our teacher for so long. I love her so much, and I have just learned so much from the way that she teaches, and she's just like this gentle mentor who wants you to do well, and I'm just so thankful to have been in her class, and I am of course coming back next time. Anyways, I've got to wrap this video up now because I've talked for forever, but I'm just gonna say that poetry is just an amazing medium of writing that I would highly suggest you try out if you haven't already. Tell me in the comments below what you thought of the 2 different prompts, what you thought of my poems, what you thought of this series, at least the first half of it, because there will be more. Anyways, keep calm, read on, and I'll see you in a video soon. Goodbye!